And we're live. Welcome everyone to the Sprint Agile Show. So today I have the privilege of having a chat with Elad Sofer. Elad is the director of R&D at ActiveFence and also a certified LESS trainer. We met, when was it? 2019, I think, in the LESS conference in Munich. We were on the same team as well. Welcome to the show, Elad.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure seeing you again. We did have a lot of good times back in Munich.
Absolutely. It was just before the lockdowns. I just wish we could travel again. We could have those physical um, interactions. I know, actually, that's interesting because I know Less is one of few frameworks and uh, few agile frameworks that you can't really get a full certificate without attending in person. Is that right?
Yes, yes, this is a decision we've made in the trainers group, the trainers team. It was
Mhm.
a heated discussion, and at the end we decided that the quality of training of online training cannot be compared to real life training, but we didn't want to stop any online activities. Just we didn't want to ignore the current situation, and we decided that we will not be providing certifications because we feel the quality of the learning is not that high, but we will continue teaching for those of the trainers who are interested in that. So
That's really good because I think well, I miss in-person interactions quite a lot, and I hope we can start doing those. I mean, even for our trainings, we keep going and we issue certificate and things like that, but it's not the same. I mean, those relationships that you build and the quality of the training, definitely.
definitely not. And I know that in Europe now some live trainings are starting to be scheduled. So there is
That's really good.
yes,
There
there
is
is
hope, right? There's light at the end of the tunnel.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, in Australia, we still, to the best of knowledge, my knowledge, is not many live trainings happening, but travel has resumed, so people can start traveling. And yeah, I really look forward to coming back to Europe. Definitely,
It's a crazy world out there.
it's a crazy world. Okay, so today our conversation is about systems thinking. That's a topic. And we haven't really prepared anything. We want to have a conversation about it and see where the conversation take us to. And one of the things that has recently been in my mind is why do some people have the capacity to handle and understand complexity better than others? Why are some people have more predisposition towards systems thinking? What do you think, Ella?
Well, that's a big question, I think, but I will share my perspective. But I'm not sure that the correct answer to your questions. Um, I would say that many of us we have biases that are embedded within our thinking. We have mental models that kind of blur our vision towards understanding reality. They create a specific perception, and our brain is wired to ignore things that are misaligned with what we know and what we understand, right?
Mm,
So I think in many cases, system thinking as a practice will reveal truths that are to some extent unimaginable to what we think. And it breaks like some of the basic, when you look at an organization through a system thinking's model or a system diagram, then you get an understanding that what you thought is actually wrong. And I think that often is very hard to deal with. So like all of us, all of the time, we find ways to let our confirmation bias take over and
mm,
just help us ignore. Of course, this is not something that we are doing intentionally. It
yeah,
happens inside our brain. I think we see it in many things. Why? How can't they understand that? I mean, like questions like that, which we encounter all of the time. So I
so
think
you
there's
think
a
that?
lot. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, carry on.
No, no. You
So
go.
you think there's an element of uh, being faced with that naked truth, which makes you feel vulnerable and is a bit overwhelming. Do you think?
Yes, I tend to agree. That's also a good definition of the situation. I think, yes, facing the truth is not always something our brain is capable of dealing with.
Yes, that's
So we
interesting.
are, to a certain extent, of course, not in the negative kind of approach. We lie to ourselves
Yes.
to have our safety, to stay
Yes.
calm and stuff like that. Yes.
It's really interesting how biases shape our mental models and how we see the world. I always ask, I have a bias. I like to think I don't, but I definitely everyone has biases, right?
Yes.
But I ask myself, like, how do I know something is true? When I believe in something, how do I know it's true? And it's really hard to sometimes question yourself in that sense.
Yes, I think when you were speaking, something came to my head. How do I know that something is true? Is a great question. I'm not think in many things. I'm not sure that truth is a thing. So there's no single version of the truth. There's multiple permutations of combining the different things and creating a perception that we call truth.
Tell me
Uh,
more. I'd like to know more. What do you mean by that? There is no single truth.
so, like, let's look at just any simple daily situation in an organization. You see an employee, a team member,
Mhm.
and for some reason he's not contributing as expected. At least someone thinks that they are not contributing as expected, right? So again, first of all, there's the interpretation here, right? What is expected? Do they know that they are expected to do that? But let's say I'm his manager or her manager. It's very hard for me to acknowledge the fact that actually I'm responsible or partly responsible for the fact that this person is not pulling the weight in the team, right? Just a really daily example. Is it?
Mm.
It's very hard for me to admit to myself and maybe even to my managers and the other team members that I have responsibility for this person not being able to contribute. Maybe because I changed something in the environment design that doesn't enable them to contribute. Maybe there's like a lot of options, and I think that's an example for this truth. What is the truth,
Okay. So it's
right?
all about the perspective, right? Which perspective you're looking at it, and kind of reminds me of that parable about the elephant. You probably have heard about it. That there are a few scientists, blind scientists, who go into a dark room and they're touching something, and it's an elephant, but they don't know. So someone is touching the legs, it says a tree. Someone is touching the trunk, says that it's a big hose. Someone is touching the tusk and say it's a spear. But what is it, right? So now,
Yes.
in that sense, do you think there is an objective reality, the elephant, or that doesn't exist? It's just a perspective.
Well, I do think there is an objective reality, at least in some situations, not all.
Of course, yeah.
Um, I think that this objective reality can be, like, let's call it fact based,
Hmm.
and maybe a little addition. What is reality anyway? I mean,
Yeah.
reality is also um, when we say reality, what do we mean? Do we mean like a snapshot? If I take a picture of a street and I say this is the street, it's real or is it not real? The thing is, and that goes into system thinking again. I'm seeing a snapshot. I'm not seeing something that is alive and continuously changing and being modified, and events happen that have implications on the other parts of that street
Hmm.
or the system, right? So I think reality is also often for the sake of us not being able to deal with this huge complexity. So we simplify it in our minds. We create a mental model to simplify reality, and then we look at a snapshot and not at the living organism that
Yeah.
continuously changes. So that's also right? Truth.
That was, yeah, that was a great, that was perfect description of it. Because if you go back to the elephant parable, well, what's an elephant, right? Is it that animal, or is it just outside of it, or is it inside of it? Is it connected to a herd of elephants? Does it have a baby in its stomach, or is it a statue of an elephant? Can be a million different things, right?
Yes, and on top of that, they also change. I mean, the thing that this elephant was just a second ago is different. It changes all of the time. It moves, it breathes. You said there's a baby, maybe the baby grows, it's born. Now there's no baby. So, or the baby is
Exactly.
out. So it's a different kind of relationship or whatever. So yes, the thing with complexity thinking, I think one of the things to acknowledge is that everything is moving all of the time. And when we analyze or try to better understand something, we better take into account this dynamic nature of the beast that is changing continuously. I think that's part of the thing that makes it really difficult to like comprehend. And there
Ab-
you said system thinking. So this is where system thinking becomes very powerful. And because system thinking really tries to examine the dynamics of a system, not so much the snapshot, not so much this
Yes.
current state,
How
but
the
let's
system
look,
changes over time.
yes, what are the forces that will impact or can impact, and how, in what way do they impact, right? So
Mm.
is it like something that creates a linear relationship, that the more of this will create more of this? It could be opposite, it could be delayed, it could be just a temporary thing that happens in the system and will stop happening within a certain amount of time. So there's a lot of
Absolutely. Great, no,
complexity.
great description. I loved the points that you're making. Now, if we go back to our original question, you talked about certain certain mental models that, if people have those mental models, it's systems thinking is more friendly with them, and it's easier for them to handle complexity and understand complexity. What do you think are some of those attributes, like some of those personal attributes, or some of those mental models? Can we even talk about them? Can we quantify or qualify some of them, or is it possible?
That's a good question. I don't think it's about personality or things like that. I my at least my view on that is that I think it's more about education. I mean, what kind of
Mm.
knowledge did you get that helps your brain deal with this conflict of this is what I was taught my whole life, some ideas that are based on mental models that were widely spread in the late 1900s and are part of the industrial revolution, and the things that we think that we know about society, about people, about organizations. and
Mhm.
and I think if we have the chance and we are ready to learn that there is more to that, and I don't know if I can characterize, you need A, B, and C
Yes,
in order to do that. I think it's probably coincidental. Indeed,
totally.
it needs to start with some curiosity. I
Yeah.
think maybe that would be something that people like us who are interested in exploring more are probably curious. Now,
So,
why are we curious? That's bigger than me to understand. Of uh,
so listening to you, I think my gut feeling is also maybe an element of how do you say, growth mindset could be helpful as well. Like, questioning yourself and always being prepared to go that extra mile to expose yourself to new ideas, curiosity, like you're saying, and ability to question yourself. Okay, this is me now. This is where I am now, but detaching my ego from my place and say, okay, if I'm wrong, it doesn't mean I'm bad or anything. I can be better. I can learn more and be more curious.
I definitely agree. I was reflecting in my mind as you were speaking. I think the my mental teachers or the people that I've learned the most from are exactly like that. Are people who are not letting their ego guide their decisions. They are very able to demonstrate vulnerability. They
Hmm.
are very able to say, I was wrong, and let's talk about it. And when they talk to you, you actually get the feel that they are not condescending. They are speaking to
Yeah.
you like at the same level, even if they are really super like knowledgeable, 5, 10, 100 times more knowledgeable than you. They have this inherent modesty, let's say. So
Yes. Modesty. Love that word. Modesty,
yes.
humility. Absolutely. So now, if anyone is interested in improving their capability of handling uncertainty and complexity, I would say, complexity. Do you have any tips? How can people handle complexity better?
um, I would probably go and start by reading more about it. I would get educated a little bit. I would not say go and challenge your basic models just yet, but try
Hmm.
to understand that how can you go about and challenge your own mental models in a healthy manner. That
Hmm.
goes to like on a personal level and to an organizational level. Like when you go into an organization and you want to create some traction of change, you don't immediately just this is how you really look like, because that will be too overwhelming. So I think
Yes.
there needs to be some
Journey.
mental preparation, some reading, some talking with people, some stuff like that. And then when you feel that you have enough curiosity and enough openness, then you can probably go ahead and say, okay, now I'm going to deep dive and see what's really going on.
How can you deep dive?
So I don't have like any formula. I think it's a personal decision, and I'm not even sure what
Like
are the
system
four.
modeling, things like that.
Yeah,
System modeling, or what does that mean?
yes, you could do system modeling. You could do any number of like simple activities to challenge you. Or you could go and read stuff like Daniel Kahneman's about system one and system two, and have a better understanding of how your brain perceives things. And
Mm-hmm.
Dan Ariely and stuff like challenge uh, common knowledge or like
Yeah.
common conceptions. And once you have enough doubt, I think then you could more easily start and
Rebuilding,
yes, I'm
shaking the reality.
something I learned from one of my mentors, all-time mentors, Esther Derby. She said to me, confusion. There was a situation. I said I feel confused, and I remember her answer to this day. It was probably more than 10 years ago when she told me that. She said, confusion is a good state because that is a state of learning.
Oh, that's amazing, man. I love
Yes.
it.
So I think that doubt and humility and less ego when and that
Yeah.
could lead to relearning, like real being open to anything and let your biases influence less.
Mm,
Uh,
absolutely. Now, last question before we end up. This just came to me. I don't know if it's something that we can even explore today, or is it too big of a topic? Uh, is systems thinking the only way of handling complexity and becoming familiar with complexity, or is there other ways?
definitely not. Definitely not. System thinking is not even a way to deal with complexity. It's a way to understand complexity. So system
Mm,
thinking is about understanding. It's not very actionable in
okay.
in
Got it.
general. The actionable part is has nothing to do with system thinking. So stuff
Yes.
like root cause analysis and system analysis and ideas and models that were developed in the
Mm,
60s and 70s on how to approach a problem, some of them
yes.
Toyota and stuff like
Design
that.
thinking, and yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
But on top of that, there are frameworks like the Kinevan framework
Yes.
uh, that also talks about dealing with complexity. And I don't recall there's another like Blue Ocean. Uh,
Yes.
so there's I'm not saying that my favorite one is like the classic system thinking, but the Kinevan framework is also pretty valid and people use it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Again, there are the differences between the models, but all of them are valid and fair.
So, absolutely. So people got to figure out which one resonates with them, which one they can connect easier, and
Yeah,
yeah, take it from there. It was such a pleasure having this conversation with you a lot. I wish we could talk more, but probably 20 minutes is, as much as people are willing to spend their times these days.
definitely.
It was so much learning for me, and yeah, lovely to
Thank
have you here
you.
today.
It was fun meeting you again and seeing you again, and let's do this again.
Oh, absolutely, man. Let's do this again. And maybe, who knows, maybe soon we can do it in person and
Amen.
record it somewhere in Europe, or maybe you could come down to Australia. Let's see how it
Ooh,
goes.
that will be nice.
Thank you so much, Elad. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much, everyone.
Arash.
So, if you're interested in getting more videos like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's where these videos are mostly available. I mean, they're broadcasted everywhere on LinkedIn and everywhere, but YouTube is the place to go if you're interested to see previous videos or get notified when new videos come out. Thank you so much and hope you enjoy it.